Let's face it, most SOPs are a complete mess. They're bloated, confusing, and nobody actually uses them. I know this because that's exactly how I used to make them. Then I started building SOPs the right way for massive companies, tiny teams, and pretty much everything in between. And every single time the result was exactly the same. Better training, less confusion, and way faster results. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through my exact SOP framework that I use, give you access to my template, and guarantee that if you stick around until the end, your training and operations will be way more efficient. Also, if you found this video useful, make sure to share it with your friends, employees, coworkers who also need to work on their SOPs. We all have those people. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first thing that we have to understand is what even is an SOP? It stands for a standard operating procedure. And it really is just a simple way to train people. Yet I see so many people overcomplicate it and make it really messy where people aren't going to understand. Now, this is the framework that I use. You may find other things after watching this video that you want to add or maybe change up, and I'd love to hear them. So make sure to comment down below. What are some of your thoughts? What are some of your ideas? How do you write SOPs? But this is the framework that I use that I've seen a lot of success with. So the first thing that you have to understand is an SOP is a map. It's a guideline, but what it's not is a novel. Most people write these 20-page SOPs that are super complex. They use super, complex words and verbiage. But what you have to understand and go under the assumption for everything is that all of your new trainees don't know anything and they don't want to learn anything. Most people think that, okay, I'm hiring an employee. They're so hungry to learn. They know a little bit about it. But if you go under the assumption that they don't know anything and they don't want to learn anything, now you can write an SOP that's duplicatable. So now even if they don't have experience, you can actually make sure that everyone can understand your process. So the other thing is it's not a checklist, right? It's not a rule book. It's a training manual. At the core of what an SOP is, the only goal is to train someone on how to do a task. And the best part is if you do this correctly, your business can run without you. So once you write it once and you master this flow, you don't have to write it multiple times, right? But let me explain why most SOPs fail at this job. And most SOPs actually make you go back and redo everything. And it creates massive confusion from the team because it's not set up correctly. The first problem that I see all the time is it's overcomplicated, overwritten, and no one reads them, right? So they use words that, if you've been around a company for a while, it may make sense, but you're using words that don't make sense for somebody that hasn't been in the ecosystem of the business, right? So it's overwritten and it's overexplained. The second thing is they assume too much knowledge, right? If you understand the goal of an SOP, the only goal is to get them to know how to do a certain task. They don't need to be geniuses at doing this task or know how to do it like the back of their hand. They need to know what steps are required for your business. And the third thing is that they never explain why the process exists and what it solves. Some people just have step-by-step guidelines and they may be well written, but if you don't understand why they're actually beneficial to the company, then it's going to be very, very hard to know when to use the SOP. So let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen real quick and show you an example of a bad SOP. So this is an example of what a bad SOP looks like. And they actually followed the framework that I lay out in the good SOP, but you can see that it's very, very hard. So let me zoom in a little bit just so we can understand it. So title and tool, right? The title was Execution of Modular Web Interface Infrastructure Using Rubik Configurations version 3.9.2. That makes no sense at all, right? Even if I'm the owner of that company and I read that, it doesn't really make sense, right? And the tool is proprietary Rubik CMS interface via backend dashboard and architecture. So do you kind of get what I'm saying here? This is what a lot of SOPs look like. And I know when I got contracted to go work with some big companies and I would look through their training modules, this is what it sounded like. And I'm not even kidding. You guys may be looking at this and laughing like, I would never write an SOP like that. But you'd be surprised at how many people actually do. And then you look at the what, right? This SOP explicits the macro and micro steps required to deploy digital assets in the form of external accessible brand domain. None of it's making sense, right? So it's very, very hard for a new person to come in. And if they start reading all of this, they're going to get overwhelmed. They're going to get analysis paralysis. They're not going to know what to do. And then they're always going to come to you for questions and answers and all of this stuff. Right. And then we can read through a couple of these. I'll link these in the description below so you can see, some direct examples of bad versus good. But then they still use an analogy, which I absolutely love doing. But it's an analogy that nobody really understands, right? If you're not an editor, you don't know what DaVinci is. And Google Docs, more steps, fewer cuts. And then you go into, the steps, right? Log in via SSO using two-factor authentication. You should have already been assigned credentials by the IT department. So some of this is good, but when you start throwing out stuff like this, unless you have 1,000 employees and you really need to put like these codes on there, it's not required, right? You want to make this as simple as possible. Remember what I said in the beginning. Always be under the assumption that they know absolutely nothing and they don't want to learn anything. So you have to spark a willingness to learn and have it so simple that they understand it. So now that we go through this, you guys can look at it, click on the link in the description, read through this if you want to read through, but this is an example of a bad SOP. So now that we're jumping into what makes a good SOP, the first thing that you have to understand is something that I've said a couple times in this video, but you really want to understand why I'm saying this. So the two things I always say, you have to assume that they know nothing and they don't want to learn anything, right? And why do I say this? It's not judgmental, right? It's not assuming that everyone you hire is stupid, right? It's insurance. You want to act like they don't, because even if they are smart and they can understand it, if you make it so simple and so easy to understand, there may be people that catch on like that, but there may be some people that are a little bit slower. So you have to build the SOPs and cater to everyone, right? If you're catering your SOP for the most complex, smart, tech-savvy individual in the world, you're going to always have to keep making more SOPs. And the goal with it, just like everything, is you don't want to do it more than once. Once you create an SOP, you want to keep the SOP that way. You don't want to keep creating brand new ones for every type of person. So by going under the assumption that they know nothing and that they don't want to learn anything, you can create an SOP that works for anybody on the spectrum of super genius to just starting out, right? And even a real world example of why SOPs are important, if we look back, even the Romans used SOPs on how to build roads, which made them travel faster, ultimately expanding their empire. But it was all based on exactly how to do a process so that the founder of it doesn't have to go and teach them every single time. So let's jump in real quick. I'll share my screen again and let's go over what a good SOP looks like. So this is the flow of a good SOP. And this is what I use. Like I said, you may want to add different things based on your industry, what your business is, and I'm super interested in what you add or take away, so definitely leave it in the comments below. But let me zoom in on this, right? So the first thing is always a title, right? This is just for organization purposes, pretty self-explanatory of why you need a title, but you can see that immediately the title is creating a simple website for your business. And if we just jump back to the bad SOP, executing a modular interface infrastructure, right? So don't you agree that this is way more simple to follow? It's not overwhelming because the title sets the stage for what people are learning. So if they're overwhelmed by the title, more than likely they're not going to go through every bit of this SOP. Now, the next thing I always like adding is what, right? So the title, what is it, right? What is this SOP meant to do? And you want to just keep all of this very short and to the point, but you want to have someone understand what it is. So this SOP explains how to create a clean, conversion-focused website using Rubrik management systems from start to publish, right? So very easy to follow. And you want to make sure, because like I said, you want to assume that they don't know anything, right? And you want to understand that they don't want to learn anything either. So the whole goal of this intro section, before you even get to the step-by-step instructions, is to make sure that they're interested enough in learning it so that they will actually learn it. Now, the next thing I put is why, right? So title, what it is, and why it's important, right? So this is just an example, but if you don't have a website, your prospects can't find you, trust you, or buy from you. This guide solves that by helping you build a professional looking website fast, no tech experience required, right? So you can understand very quickly why this is important. And it's in less than a sentence, right? So, and then I also put no tech experience required. So now if somebody's reading this, especially if it's an employee, they're like, oh shoot, I may not know how to write code, but I could build this website. It says no tech experience. So now they're a little bit more interested. You're breaking down those objection barriers and they're thinking, okay, this may be doable for me. They're not getting fearful. They're not getting, scared to actually jump in. And then what I always do, this is what absolutely changed the way I write SOPs. And it always helped. And I would get it in team meetings all the time as well. But I always put a tiny analogy or a story, right? Because stories resonate with people, analogies resonate with people. And I would even have people in team meetings that would say the analogy. When I'd say, okay, we need to do this, and they're like, oh, just like, and then say the analogy, right? So it's really cool. That's what people remember. So you want to make sure the analogy is easy to understand and something that everyone understands. So like for this example, think of building a website like assembling furniture at IKEA, but way easier. Just follow the clear steps and your business will have a beautiful digital home by the end. So you can see that's kind of warming, right? So now it's like, oh shoot, I've probably built furniture from IKEA or I've assembled furniture. This is easier than that. Very cool. It's just a step-by-step. And now you get like the analogy, the story behind it. So back to the example in team meetings, I'd say, okay, cool. It's time to build a website. Oh, just like assembling an IKEA furniture. And it's always just like a fun laugh, but it's a good analogy because that's what people remember. Now, the step-by-step is really kind of what it sounds like. That's what you add after all of this stuff because this breaks down the barriers and gets them to be willing to learn. The step-by-step actually tells them what to do. And you can write it out like this. There's a ton of great softwares out there nowadays that, can do this. Scribe is a great example of that. Scribe is a great SOP tool that you can use. It is paid, so if you don't want to pay for it, I would do it this way. But it's very, very easy. So I always put do, show, tell. Do this, show that. So show a screenshot of logging in and tell them what it is. Tell this your command center of everything, what it is. So do this, show the screenshot, tell them what it is, right? So it's very, very easy. I do that for every single step. So like step 2, go to website builder section. Do, navigate to tools, website builder. Show a highlight of this section in dashboard. Tell, this is where all templates and sites tools live. So it's very easy. So do, show, tell. Very simple. Like I said, I do that for every single step. And the do, show, tell, you can do a Loom link, how to create a website using Rubik. Scribe is another great one. Notion's a great one. Google Drive, whatever you want to do to store it. And then you always want to end it with owner plus review date. So this is always great just because if you're the founder and you're not making all of the SOPs anymore, you have a big enough team where they're kind of making their own. You want to make sure that you know who built it and when it was last reviewed. Because then it's way easier. Instead of you as the founder reading through all of this, you could just go to the review date and, if the review date was, May 7th, 2016, and it's 2025, it's probably time to update it, right? You don't really need to read through the entire SOP. You know that it's out of date. And then you can always go back to the owner and say, okay, you built this. This is what it is. And you always want to assign it to a person and a team. So marketing, web ops team, and then this is where I'd usually put their name. So, if it was Zach Harms, just so you know who actually built it, what team they're a part of, and what they do. So this is just a great section to always add just for the founder, makes organization easy. But now that you see the difference, you can see the exact correlation, right? The bad SOP over-explains, makes it way too complicated. The good SOP is clear-cut, easy to follow. And like I said, this is my framework. This is what I've used that I've seen a lot of success with. But if you have anything else, definitely leave it in the comments below. I'm going to attach this exact template inside of the description below. So you'll see the SOP template. It'll explain what it does, what you need to put there, and you can just follow along this step by step. All right, so if you made it this far, you're already ahead of 90% of operators who never really document anything. And I used to be one of them. It's not fun. But don't stop here. Download the free SOP template from the link down in the description. And don't just watch this video, go build your first SOP. Take action. And if you've got your own way of creating SOPs that works, drop it in the comments below. I'm always open to seeing how other operators think and what they add on there. This is my framework I like using, but if you have anything else, definitely make sure to do that. And then the next step, go watch another one of our video trainings. We have so many great tutorials on exactly how to become an operator and have your business run more efficient. And as always, no fluff, no pitch, no $1,000 webinar course at the end, just systems that I use that I find that work, right? So without further ado, like, subscribe, comment down below, and we'll see you in the next video.